Welcome back, everybody, to another edition, a holiday edition, we'll call it that, of Masters in Motion. I'm Rick Stevenson, and with Jason Grubb, we have a special guest tonight, Val Voboril. You might recognize the name and the face, and certainly her athletic career. But we're here tonight to talk to her, have her walk us through her journey, and see how 2025 has been treating her. She is a multi-time games athlete, as you probably all know. I count up 8 times. I sure hope I'm right on that. 6 times individual. Now think about that, folks. 6 times individual, 2 times coming over to the age group side of the house. So she is one of these rare athletes who has the perspective from competing all the way through. And if my numbers are right, we're talking ranch, all the way through from Birmingham now to Columbus. So she's seen it all, done it all, but she's also works full time and is pretty darn busy. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and welcome to Masters in Motion, Val.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you, Jason, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you have, quite a long career, but to go back just a little bit, if you don't mind telling us how maybe you stumbled into the sport, or what your athletic background was prior to that, or kind of what everybody seems to have what led you to doing what you did and where you've been.
This episode is powered by Thirdzy, your go-to for game-changing sleep recovery. Imagine hitting your workouts harder and waking up feeling unstoppable. That's what Thirdzy's PM Recovery Collagen does for me. It's like pre-workout, but for your sleep, fueling your body's active recovery processes without any melatonin or sedatives. Just 1 scoop before bed supports deeper, more restorative sleep so you can crush your fitness goals. Ready to experience the best rest and recovery? Visit Thirdzy.com and transform your nights into recovery power hours. Thirdzy, because sleep is the ultimate recovery tool. That's THIRDZY.com. Save 20% with code JASONZZZ. Let's get into the show.
So I was like a recreational gymnast as a kid. Chris Clever and I laugh that she and I were 2 of the very few who didn't have like a high school or collegiate athletic background. I mean, she played basketball, but she didn't take it like professionally or whatever. And same with me. Like, I dabbled in gymnastics and I had some gymnastics background. I was terrible at competing, didn't go very far with it. And then did nothing in college and found myself doing, like, I like to move. And when I met my husband, his sister and brother-in-law were telling us about this CrossFit thing, and Steve and I ran, and sometimes we would do some other obstacle or kind of thing like that, and we're looking at these workouts online, like, who does 100 pull-ups? This is bananas. Is like, people don't really do this. And the CrossFit LA that was in town had a wait list a mile long. There was like one in Los Angeles, and that was it was booked. You couldn't get in to that. That was so hard. And then I was doing Krav Maga and bag classes and aerial fabric, like circus kind of stuff. And I was just always looking for something new. In summertime, being a school teacher, I had more time to kind of play and dabble in things. And one of the Krav Maga owners, coaches, he was going to break off and start Krav Maga separately. And one of the other ladies that he worked with was always trying to find the newest fad and exercise, and she felt like she had just come across CrossFit and this was amazing. So they were going to like merge these. It was Krav Maga, kettlebell, and CrossFit, and they needed members, and I needed something affordable. And they said, "Hey, come be a member." And I'm like, "How much?" And they said, "Free. We need bodies." And I'm like, "I'll be your body." Wow. So that was kind of how I jumped in. And then the coach, there was like, how there's like morning classes, afternoon, evening, and there was a morning Liz, and she did Fran in the morning. And so my coach was like, "Okay, well, you got to do Fran." I go, "Okay, I don't know what Fran is, but whatever you tell me to do." And we said, "All right, thrusters and pull-ups." And I go, "Great. What weight do I use?" And he goes, "Well, it was morning. Liz did it 75. I don't know that there was a 65 option. I didn't know that that was a thing. So 75 pounds goes on the bar. 3, 2, 1, go. I'm doing thrusters. I'm in the round of 15. I clunk my chin, bite my cheeks and my teeth, drop the barbell. I shake my head, and my coach goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then he goes, "Pick up the fucking bar." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I finished my first Fran in 4.5 minutes. And he's like, you're kind of good at this. And I'm like, okay. And that was kind of where it started. And then I think that summer we had the sheriff's thing to qualify to go to the ranch. And then it just kind of evolved from there. So that
So
was
that
my start.
summer. So we're talking 2008,
8.
9. Yeah. Okay. Wow. To think that was a waiting list for the box that you wanted to go to in California. We're not talking some other far part of the country or world like that. So for perspective, I hope everybody realizes that that's the way back.
Yeah,
That's
that was
OG.
CrossFit LA. They had the wait list, and it wasn't the McDonald's, Starbucks, CrossFit on every corner boom that we had later.
Hmm. So the sign up for the ranch, uh, that was a sign up or qualifier? The
So
sign
we
up
had a
first year?
qualify at a
You had a
sheriff's
qualifier.
yeah, at a sheriff's station, and
Oh my gosh.
that was our SoCal 6 way back. That was Rebecca Voigt, Chris Clever, me, Kim Ball, Michelle Via, Katie Hogan, and then we had like one alternate, Linda Leapier, who she was master's age already at that point. Who, so yeah. Well, I mean, I was 31 then, so.
Did you did you think that experience there, what you entered into there at the ranch, would lead you to um, successive years? Because the bug bit you, obviously, and you come back from the ranch. How does that then shape what you want to do next? Saying, "Oh, I think this is a nice outlet or a nice avenue for me."
Well, so weird. The ranch was not a great experience for me because I heat stroked out on the first event on that run because I took an antihistamine because there was so much dust and so much the hilly run, and I still came in top 10 on that run. And like Kalipa fell and he heat stroked. I fell. I scraped my head, but I rolled across the finish line. It was a very dramatic start to a short games experience. But to your point, like the bug had bit me. It was the community and the people, like bonding with those girls from the different gyms and us meeting together every weekend or every couple of weekends to throw down and challenge each other. And that was like what hooked me. And then over time it was like, well, this fad or this little exercise blip I'm on is going to transition out like my Spartan races or like our mountain biking adventures or whatever else. Like all the little things I've done have been like little blips on my journey of fitness and exploring things. And I'm like, this will just ebb out. And it just there's just too many fun things to always get better at. There's just so many aspects to always like fiddle with and grow in and get better at.
Absolutely. And so then you transition from that to moving over to Carson and still being able to stay. I don't know. I mean, in theory, I know how big it is out there, but you could sleep in your own bed at night and drive over or whatever. I mean, so you're like, okay, this venue is pretty nice and it's under the lights, and oh yeah, this is kind of fun. I'm going to keep doing this. But you being a part of the individual side, tell us about that experience as you evolve through the years competing on the individual level all the way up through into Madison.
I love Carson. I love Del Mar, which I'm excited that they're bringing
Hmm.
that back to compete at. But I loved our Del Mar, and I love the StubHub Carson Field Center. I know people have mixed feelings, like about whether Madison was better or the StubHub, but hands down, Carson was fabulous. Your fans were right up close to you. There were so many instances where like somebody was like 5 feet away from me, like screaming at me to pick up a deadlift when I didn't think I could pick it up again. And um, running, and they're all standing on the sidelines and, yelling a phrase that you'd said on some sort of podcast that they'd heard, and they're shouting it back to you. And you're like, oh, um, that the energy in that tennis stadium was electric. It was, I have a lot of fond memories there.
Under the lights. Yes.
Under
Friday night and Saturday night under the lights there at the tennis stadium. And for us, not being on that stage yet, it was always like, okay, what is he going to pull out? What are they going to do? For those two nighttime events, some of the earlier heats go, and then the sun's setting, and legless rope climbs or something like that at that one point. You know, just there's a million things that came up, the killer cage and all that stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, where do they come up with these ideas? But your ability to compete at that high level and to let some people know, I mean, you just don't show up to compete. I counted, you've been on the podium 4 times in your experiences too. So when you show up, you are prepared, you are ready. We all know a lot of these competitions are luck of the draw, kind of what comes out. But being well prepared, like you have shown that you can be, you've been able to execute at the absolute highest level.
Thanks. I do whatever I try my best. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I walk away from everything wondering, I mean, maybe not Jason. If you end up on number
Yeah,
one, maybe you still have the
I do.
same, maybe you still have the same drive. Like, did I do enough? Could I have done more? Was there like, there's still places. I think that's probably what drives us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the sport that we're doing, or we wouldn't be successful in the sport or at the level we're at if we weren't always analyzing how it could have been better or how you could have done more.
Constantly analyzing that, of course. Yeah. And so even when I'm end up on top, the final results don't always tell the story of the weekend. There's a lot of gambling on a weekend, where you're taking risks, taking chances, and even making mistakes. At this year's games, I made 3 or 4 different mistakes that were significant, like just a straight up mistake, like just lost my concentration and did 5 ring muscle ups instead of 6. Like, what am I doing? So yeah, every year there's something to battle back from and to think about it. It makes me think about, like, for you, someone who's competed at the highest level much, much, much longer than I have. Is it mental? Is it physical? Is it both? What is it that separates the highest level or the games level athlete from the indie athlete all the way up into the masters athletes, from the everyday athlete, or from everyone else? What's been your experience of that, or how do you answer that question?
I mean, that's a question like I asked Becca. I'm like, what keeps you going? Like when she's done like 18 years of CrossFit, right? How do you, not 18 years of CrossFit, 18 years of high level competition. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you keep that fire going? And your question isn't just what keeps you going, but what pushes you and separates you from people who enjoy exercise
Mm-hmm.
and local throwdown comps. But I I think it's that not just I think it's a type A personality, like someone who's really driven, but on top of that, someone who also is willing to ignore discomfort, is willing to it's someone who's willing to be uncomfortable. Because I was
Mm-hmm.
going to say pain at first, but you have to be smarter than just pushing through pain, right? But someone who's
Mm-hmm.
willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because you can't I don't think you can get to that high level unless you're willing to be pretty uncomfortable.
Comfortable. Yep. Yep. I think that's a separator. But let's also not sell accomplishments short. Like you've demonstrated to be able to be proficient at whatever they've asked, and you were getting in the water swimming, for example, a lot earlier than any of the age groups ever did. I mean, biking and any of the odd only elements that us as fans might see on the individual side. Here you are testing yourself all the way through. So you've got to have some talent too. We're not taking that away.
Thank you.
But there is a switch. I think I'll agree with you that there is something that Rick chooses to do, Val you choose to do, or I choose to do. We choose to do um, challenging things. I want to say painful things, and obviously we're saying, like, doing jerks when our knee is killing us. Like, we're not, like, Rick is recovering. He's not going to do things that are damaging. It's not looking for pain. We're not pain junkies. That's for sure. Like, I don't like pain. But I think what you're saying is we're willing to step towards that, both in training or preparation and in competition, for the outcome that we get from that, and that is a type A personality kind of trait, and it's not baked into everyone. And I would say that I don't even think of it as a choice. It's just what's on the agenda for the day. This is I don't actually. I mean, I write the programming that I do for Boulder athletes, but I would say, like, I don't choose what I'm doing. I just go, and this is what is necessary. It's interesting.
The old secret, intensity.
Intensity. The last couple of years, I've really, since COVID, I've really thought about it because I feel like every once in a while I lose my fire. I lose my drive to, I still do uncomfortable things, but like to do it at the level that makes me feel prepared to compete at an elite level is next level uncomfortable. But I always think about it with my students because as adults, we can choose to make our lives very comfortable and not have to do uncomfortable things. And when I think about my elementary school students coming in, and for many of them, they're doing uncomfortable things, learning, being pushed to learn all the time, and in a lot of areas that they're uncomfortable. And then they have sports and family and people always giving them a million things, and they're really full. And
Mm-hmm.
so I try to remind myself, like when they're melting down, it's because it feels that big and that hard and that uncomfortable for them. But as adults, you can be like, why are you making such a big deal? Because it is a big deal. And so I try to embrace the hard, to remind myself of those moments, to be empathetic for what they're going through, because in their moment it feels that big, that painful, that hard, that uncomfortable. And to have empathy for like those times, I don't know, like if I assault bike really hard and I've pushed myself to the last lactic acid threshold, I kind of want to fall on the floor and cry a little bit. And so like when my kids want to cry about how big it feels, I'm like, oh yeah, that was really hard today.
It's
Along those lines, and I love where your head's at on that. Um, as someone who's stayed competitive for years, I mean, we're thinking like the 20th anniversary of the first CrossFit Games this coming summer. Um, like, what's your secret to being as durable as you've been? Um, or or am I missing part of this? Have you had any major injuries, and have they taught you things? But what's kind of your secret to durability in this sport that you've been doing for 20 years now?
I think I have to always go back to reminding myself, like, I know it's like find your why, but like to me, when I'm having fun, and not to say that all training is fun, just like, you should love work, but there's work in work. But you find those nuggets, you find those pieces that really bring you joy. And it's the community. It was going back to doing class workouts and not doing my own competitive programming. It's meeting up with the people that challenge me and push me and make me want to do and be better. It's those moments when I have fun, when I'm not worried about the leaderboard, when I'm not comparing myself to other people, but when I'm just going out there. And I'm always competitive. Like even in my head, if I'm not saying I'm not competitive, but when I have fun doing it is when I'm successful, and when I find it easier to continue to pursue that level. I think I answered your question.
mm-hmm.
You did, and it made
Yeah.
me think of another question, and it was actually a question my wife was asking me about, or she said something. I was like, because Rick and I are a couple of dudes, right, and we can just get on here and bro it up on this podcast, right, and talk about our stuff. And I think that there's lots of times, and I think we have a lot of female listeners that probably have some interesting questions. We should actually have a ask our female guests anything sort of AMA online, because Rick and I will just, we'll just talk to you like a bro. You starting at 31 makes me think that you're in your 50s now, or 50. I mean, we're right around the same age, somewhere in that range. No? Yeah?
Or
Okay.
7 or 8.
Oh, okay. So as you have aged as a female, talk about that, and talk about how that's changed, how your what you've experienced in maybe your body has changed over the years. If that's a meaningful question. If it's a ridiculous question, just tell me to, it's not a meaningful question. But yeah, I'm curious.
Well, I think from all the phases, right? Like from like before having a kid, and then having a kid, and then juggling all the things, and dads are wonderful, like support as much as they can, but being a mom is a different ball of wax. And there's certain responsibilities that are just yours, no matter how much you try and share in your household or how wonderful your spouse is, and juggling all those things. And I remember coming back after having my daughter, everyone's like, do you feel like you have your body back? I'm like, I'll never have my body back. It's a whole different body. It grew a human being, and now it's changed, and I just have to adapt. And then you hit like perimenopause or whatever this wonderful phases of
Yeah.
adulthood. And not even just that. I mean, just from like what it takes, like, listening to Jason talking about recovery, like what it takes to recover. And, I used to be able to like survive and compete on 5 hours of sleep a night. And that ain't cutting it anymore.
No.
How I could do like 10 leg swings, 5 air squats, swing my arms around and hit a workout, literally jump right in, and that doesn't work anymore. So point, like, I think whether I'm female or male, there's shifts that, like, I know we like to say age doesn't matter. It has an impact though. It impacts my warm up and my recovery and the things that I need to do to continue moving. It impacts how often I hit workouts intensely.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I pick and choose. I always like to move, but maybe every day isn't like going for max effort, right? That has changed over the years.
I think that's the growth of the sport, the growth of, upper level athletes realizing that what we watched you all do a few years back, and the Rich Froning training videos would come out and all that kind of stuff, and he just would go 3 times a day and all this. I mean, that worked then. We all have changed, have gotten older, and gotten smarter along the way in figuring out how, if you want the longevity, what's that path gonna take? But
Can I
yeah,
interject real quick? I think that might be the other reason why I've been able to have longevity is I could never train 3 hours or 3 times a day. I've only been able in my career to like nail down a 1 to 1.5 hour training session, like a day, right? And maybe in the summertime leading up to the games, I could double down, whatever,
mm-hmm.
and hit longer volume to prep me. But because I haven't been able to like overtrain for the most part, like my life working a full-time job, being an elementary school teacher where I don't have flexibility, and having a kid limited me to this much, and I had to make the most of this much. And so I think that's helped save me a lot from burnout and joints and injury for the most part. I mean, there's
Knock on
always
wood,
something.
absolutely. Well, Jason and I are, we have said this before on here, we're fans of the sport. We love to focus on everything masters or age group now, the appropriate way to say it. But athletes such as yourself, and you mentioned Becca, we are very excited and still are fans when we see somebody that competed on the elite individual side decide that it's good or it's okay to go and compete on the age group and continue that, because so many times there have been athletes that you just would love to see still keep going, but for whatever reason they haven't. So whenever that we see those names like such as yours, or Graham Holmberg was there this year too, and you get those names and they're a couple of leaderboards down from you, but you're like, that's the continuation which we like to see. So um, I think that spark has stayed for you, and to be able to, because the last 2 years, you've made that choice to be part of the age groups. I bet you love to hear what you thought, of each of the last 2 years. I mean, it was separated from everybody, loved it when it was together, but for other reasons outside of what we all know, things had to separate. So, what do you think of the evolution of age groups, kind of going on their own?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't do age group for a long time because I didn't want to be treated as a second class citizen. Being an individual, you were spoiled and you were first class. And even back when it was Carson, they were like off to the side and minimized, is how I perceived it.
Mm-hmm.
That was my perception. And they didn't have the same fan base, even though, they made up the majority of the people doing the sport. And then for years I was like, I wasn't sure that I was ready. My ego was involved. So once I was ready to put my ego aside a little bit, also Madison was very humbling for me. I was 39. I was the oldest female on the floor that year. I was the only female that year with a kid, and it rocked my world. It was was I was not prepared to compete with those ladies. I mean, I wasn't sure how I made it, and it was really humbling to be on that field and not perform the way I'd performed in all previous years. You know what I mean?
They say performance has an expiration date, but what if they're wrong? No matter where you start, the goal's the same: to be better, stronger, wiser, bolder. We're here for the relentless, those that Don't back down, don't compromise, and don't quit. This is training for Masters athletes by Masters athletes with a community that holds you steady. So say goodbye to random workouts, because whether you're stepping into following a program for the first time or stepping onto the podium, your journey starts here.
Yeah, I was going to say that was 2017, right?
Mhm.
So, I'm from the notes that I took, you finished fourth in the regional out there in California, the California regional, but you also were seventh in AGOQ. So then you're like, and at that time you couldn't do both. So you're like, I punched my ticket. I'm headed to Madison. And so, I mean, you did the work to get there. I mean, fourth in the regional, and what we know California was pretty stacked, a regional. You did the work, but I can imagine your training mindset leading up to those games. Okay, I know what I can do, and I'm doing everything, and then you get out there on the floor, and I'm like, why is everybody moving so much faster? I mean,
So much
where
stronger. It's like
where'd
so
this come from?
worlds of strength, like so much stronger. It was the first time that I had to stand on the floor and just be like, I literally I can't move the weight and I'm stuck. I could do one part and then I could just stand there and look at, and that was not that I've ever been the strongest athlete,
Mhm.
but it was humbling. So, but I really enjoyed Columbus this last year the most. I felt like they did a good job before, but this year was even better. They get
That's
better
good to hear.
every running
Yeah,
this. I think
yeah,
you know
yeah.
they're always growing and improving.
Yeah, I was going to say they were given a very short time to turn around 2024 with the separation of age groups and teenagers. At least this year they brought the teenagers together, so it was, age group games, and I mean that helped schedules and certainly brought in a lot of more fans as the teenagers accounted for a good amount. But yeah, I'm hopeful. Maybe I'm a little too optimistic, but I would imagine it continues to get better, even if they keep age groups separated. I don't know what you both
It's
think of
interesting.
that,
Yeah,
but
Val, if we think about like, you did in-person semifinals or in-person regionals, qualifiers, all that kind of stuff, in your former life, I didn't mean to say that, in your younger days. Now we have that coming back as masters, like in-person qualifiers, which I honestly never thought would ever happen. What's your take on that? Is this a positive? Is it going to get messy? Or is it like, hey, it's excited for the experiment?
Excited for the experiment. I think it's every change they make is always there's always questions, right? Like, is this going to be better? Is this going to be worse? Is this like, well, this region's going to have this programming and maybe that benefits these people, and this region's going to have that programming because it's not going to be the same. And then the online qualifier, at least everyone had the same thing, but you're in your gym and you can do it a million times if your body can handle it. Like, there's so many different angles, and I think everyone's potentially biased into what situation allows them better success, right? Some people are better if you get to do the workout multiple times and like dial it in, and some people are great on the fly and you can give them the workout like 4 days before and they'll be able to make it work without having to test it all. And it's nice that there's choices. People can then like it's a your own adventure to get to hopefully a happy ending.
I think since 2021 we haven't had this. Well, maybe, no, maybe 2 years we had the same thing. I mean, it feels like it changes for age groups every single year. I mean, you had nothing in 2020 because of COVID, obviously, but then every other year it's been this is in the quarterfinals are out, now they're back, now semifinals. But hey, this year semifinals in person, it's worth the experiment.
Yeah, I hope it goes well.
Val, I didn't mean to jump the gun there, but I have a question for you. Again, I'm thinking about this journey that you've had, and it makes me think. So you have this long story. It's similar to Becca. It's just been doing this for so long in such a great way, and there's many years ahead for you. What do you want your legacy in CrossFit to be? I know it's a deep, kind of a bigger question, but like when people think about you and think about you as an example of an athlete that's been here since the beginning, what's the legacy that you want
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, you got her there, Jace.
I guess I always think about how I can be a role model of stewardship, of leading, of being a good example of the sport, and how a good example of how an athlete can represent the sport. You know, from the very beginning, thanking judges and being kind and appreciative of all the volunteers and the fans, of being a good competitor insofar as being friendly to other athletes and trying to build other people up. And taking that, I think that's something Beck and I have always tried to do and tried to teach, as the younger kids come in, and it's easier and more of the masters do it naturally. So I think that's part of what makes masters a breath of fresh air, is for the most part, at least in the women's field, everyone's just so happy to be there, and it's not so cutthroat. I mean, there's an underlying level of cutthroatness, like everyone wants to do well, but there's a much more genuine, and there's more people who are all very genuinely supportive of each other. And I would say in the individual side, there were some, but it was also like, it was so intense. It was so intense, and sometimes it wasn't fun. You didn't feel like other people actually had your back out there. Nor
Good way to
they
put
never.
that.
Not a team sport, so the individual side's not team sport.
Individual side. Right, correct. Well, you said not fun, but let me pick your brain and ask you. Okay, Madison, there was an event you got stopped out at, but tell us a highlight. Tell us what stands out to you as being a special moment from, it could have been last year in Columbus to going back to the ranch.
Okay,
Just your journey. Two things. Yeah, absolutely. Story time.
One of my favorites was in the tennis stadium. We had it was a 2007. It was a repeat of the 2007. So it was the 1K row and pull-ups and shoulder to overhead. And it was five rounds of I don't remember the number of shoulder overhead, and 25 pull-ups. And I was the last female off the rower, and I slowly, my pull-ups are a strong suit, so I was able to just chip away and do the 25 unbroken every bar. And there was like the sea of green, the Invictus crowd, like at the very front of and the whole tennis stadium was like just like crazy, the energy. And I just remember like closing my eyes on that last set of 25, just like, don't come off the bar, you're so close, and just feeling that energy like push me through to that final thing and jumping off the bar and finishing. And that was just the fans and the people. That setting was a highlight. It was, my husband always is like, that was my favorite event.
I was
just experiencing it, so that was cool.
I was going to say you're describing it, and I want to go to number two there, but you're describing it, so you're actually able to, in your mind, realizing what that moment is becoming in the middle of it. And a 5-round workout takes time to play out, but sometimes people, they describe I just kind of blacked out and I just do the work and I'm looking at my judge and okay, done, cross the line. But like the build, you were like, this is special.
Yeah, I was able to like chip away. Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. My other favorite was actually not this year at the Masters. The year before, we had that assault bike one, where you have to sell your soul to get to what do we have?
70.
Three rounds, unless you could finish the assault bike calories, right?
Yeah. Double unders, chest to bar, and then you got on the bike. And the last interval was the longer one. So you really had to.
Yeah. But you had 3 chances to hit your calories.
I think so. Yeah.
My goal going in, I'm like, this is like, you train to be uncomfortable, and you're just going to suck it up, and it's going to be like, and if you just go, you only have to do this twice.
This is where I excuse myself from the conversation. You guys please continue, because it sounds like there was success on both sides.
That was my win. My win was like, that was the highlight of last year's, the year before games, because I sold my soul and I finished it, and I could just lay there writhing and cramping while everyone else had to do one more round. And I was like, but I'm done. It was so amazing, because I didn't think on that first round of the assault bike, I'm like, God, I'm not gonna accumulate enough. I'm like, I really have to go. And it was trying to find that right pace to go so that you could have the energy to do the double unders and the chest to bar and not screw those up and eat up valuable time. That was, to me, that was like a personal win, because I always doubt my fire. I always doubt like how willing I am to be uncomfortable. And over the years, my willingness to be uncomfortable is there, but sometimes I'm like, I have done so many years of pushing myself to like the extreme. Do I want to do this again? Do I really? And I'm like, I might do, and I'm going. And to be successful at it when you know it's going to hurt so bad was a win. That I still had it. I think that was a celebration. I still could do it if I had to.
I was right there with you. That was a 2-round workout for me. That was the plan going into it. And I knew my calorie targets. I knew what wattage I needed to hold in order to accomplish those calories, given the amount of time that was up. I was doing all kinds of algorithmic math in my head. And I don't know about you, but how about that feeling when you're looking at the clock and you're looking at the calories and you realize this is going to happen. I'm going to finish this in round 2. I just have to get off the spike and get my ass across that line. Otherwise, it's no good. I got to get across the line.
Yeah, because then you have to do that buy-in again to like get across the line.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my legs didn't work. So I sort of fell across the line. And like you, I laid there with that incredible sense of accomplishment, the satisfaction that you're done and everyone else is going to go 1 or 2 more rounds after you. I think it was 4 total rounds potential to accumulate the calories. But for me, it was I had an injury and I did not want to do double unders again. So in my mind, I was like, this is what's going to happen. But what was really interesting about that workout, Val, is that was the biggest test of fitness at that event. You know, a lot of the different events were I mean, if you were very tall, you'd be great at wall balls. On the wall ball event where we did a ton of wall balls, there was if you're great at bar muscle ups, you'd be great at bar muscle ups. If you're good at ring muscle ups. So all these different skills. This was one where like you had no excuse except to execute on double unders and pull ups, which shouldn't be a problem for elite athletes, and then suffer. Can you suffer? Because everyone has the capacity for the most part. But I love that you brought that one up. I have fond memories of that as well. And also that sense of looking back, like you gambled a bit, probably in that first one, like you were trying to accumulate enough calories in that first round so that you could finish in the second round. And you're riding a fine line there. So really fun moment that you have a moment at the soccer stadium, which is just intense, just craziness with the crowd feeding you energy. I mean, just that enthusiasm. And then this other experience you talk about, which was nothing more than a mental battle. I mean, if there were people cheering you on there, they don't know where you're at. They don't see the physical pull-ups happening. It's you and the monitor in front of you. And it's up to you whether you feel great at the end of this thing or you're going to do another round. And that's not the goal. So fun to have both of those memories locked in as favorites for you. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Keeps you coming back. What does the future hold for you? Either competition wise or how you want to stay involved in the sport. What does maybe 2026 or beyond look like, if you don't mind sharing?
I never commit in a year. Every year is like, we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. They're like, we'll see. Are you going to do the next one? We'll see.
Okay. Good answer.
Committing feels stressful. And I had I don't know, this last year at the games, I had torn my ligament for my thumb and competed with it because the surgeon was like, well, yeah, well, just do surgery when you're done messing it up. And then surgery, it's been a very slow recovery. But as most injuries are, like, so I also don't know where I'm going to be at. Like, will I be fit enough? I missed my strength cycle. My gym just did again. So I feel like my injuries always tie in with me not getting to do a strength cycle, the one thing that I need the most of. But yeah, I enjoy it more when I'm not hedged in and committed and I have a little bit more flexibility with it to just go with the flow. So that's where I'm at.
Well, a lot of people say that. I'm going to do the open because that's just what we do. We love it. And then we'll decide from there. That kind of. Now, okay, you mentioned your gym. Is there a gym that you have trained at for a long time specifically, or programming? How do you prepare, and what's your path?
Well, way back in the day, I trained at Dogtown, and I did their programming, and then I was getting Invictus programming, and then I did a little bit of like Invictus in my backyard training when the commute was too hard and Vin was little, and then the gym that's like 600 meters from the house that I can jog to, um, which is so nice.
That's your warm up.
Yeah, I'm spoiled. I have my rig in the backyard, but like I said, I really like the people aspect. So I don't know, for the last 7 years, I've been training at like 5 a.m. with class. And then leading up to games, I start building up the intensity or the private like gymnastics sessions or working in other things. And I think on the weekends, on Saturdays, I'll double down, get in a track workout, maybe a gym workout or something else. But I do class programming.
That is what we love to hear. Think about that.
Yeah. I think if your gym programs well, and if your gym programs well, and you can always modify, up or down. So if I just need to scale up the weight or scale up the wall ball or do an extra round or whatever it is, I think the classes allows me to, one, connect with all the people that support me, connect with people that make it fun for me, and it proved that the programming works, in my opinion.
I will say, you say 5 a.m. The early, for us, it's a 5:15 class at our place. Those first classes, I think, in a lot of affiliates are like mini tribes. I mean, those people are tight. There's camaraderie. Yeah. I mean, everybody seems to have a place to go, or why are you working out that early? So it's just that sense of community. And sounds like you're describing the same.
Yeah.
Well, Val, how can people follow your journey? How can they, if you end up competing and moving forward in the future, no commitments necessary, but where can they follow you and be influenced by your awesomeness?
Instagram, I feel like I'm like Rick in that social media piece is not my strongest suit, but when I do remember to post, or when my young friends post something shared and I can just reshare it.
Yeah, I love that.
The best.
Excellent. Val, thank you very much for your time. It was great to get to know you and talk to you about your journey. It's something we've been fans of, watching you through the years, and to be able to listen to how you've navigated through all this. It's been a pleasure. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.